so many of you have been by my side, whether it's firefighters at our testing facilities, volunteers at our food banks. Angelenos are stepping up, and I want to thank you for what you are doing. Some are a little bit closer right here, including my team. And I want to give a shout out to my Chief of Staff, Ana Guerrero, and the entire team that has literally not slept for a month, who are doing heroic work to stand up shelters, to make sure that there is assistance to the neediest, to have testing centers, and to make sure that we are doing the right thing to preserve lives. But there are some folks that you see every evening that are even closer, who we could not communicate without. And I wanted to thank them this evening. Our three incredible sign language interpreters who have been with us each night. Rick Pope, who is with us tonight, Arlene Narvaez, as well as Nicole Pansino, who is not here this evening, but you've seen in past evenings. I want to thank you for the great work that you have done to make sure all Angelenos have the safer at home message. Angelenos are truly coming together to save lives, to do the work that we all need to do, to make sure that those folks around the city have hope and help, do not feel isolated or lost, and those who are the neediest right now and sickest get the attention that they deserve. It's a goal that we share across our city family, and we see eye to eye. Things that in the past might have divided us between city boundaries or city and county and state and federal have come down. And in our city family, we've had marvelous work from our city council, led by our city council president, Nuri Martinez, but also tonight, a guest who's joined us, our city attorney, Mike Feuer, who I'm so glad is here to talk about some of the work we are doing to enforce our safer at home measures. But first, let me start, as I always do, with the latest data across Los Angeles. And as a reminder, that data deck that I showed with you, the same information I get every night, is now available for you and your families at coronavirus.lacity.org/data. It's updated every single day. So for those of you who are either bored at home or wondering what's happening, look at those numbers, print it out, share it with your friends or your family, and make sure that people look at all of the things that are guiding our decisions here in Los Angeles. Today in our county, there were 670 new cases. This is the second highest number of new cases yet, bringing the total cases in Los Angeles above 10,000 for the first time, 10,047 to be exact. This is a 7% increase, so still a single-digit increase, but nearly double or more than double the increase we saw yesterday. For comparison, the past 7 days have seen an average daily increase of 458 new cases. So while I want to always give you the encouragement and the thanks for the great work you are doing to help us bend that curve down, know that these increases continue to mean we need more beds, more ventilators, that people are still at great danger, and we need to keep up our work and not ease off the accelerator. In the city of Los Angeles, 257 of those cases resided with us, bringing our total in the city of Los Angeles to 4,462 cases, and that is a 6% increase since yesterday. And today, the worst news that we have received yet is that 40 new Angelenos passed away. 40 deaths is the most that we have experienced in a single 24-hour period. Unlike new cases, which sometimes depend on the number of tests conducted, the day of the week, the time it takes to get those tests back, deaths are final. Deaths are irreversible. And our hearts go out to everybody who is dealing with that finality tonight, of a loved one who is no longer here, of the tragedy of what this is all about. In the end, human lives. Those 40 deaths brought the total to 360 deaths. That's more deaths in just this month plus than we see in homicides in an entire year in Los Angeles. And it's a 13% increase since yesterday. And for comparison, the past 7 days have seen an average daily increase of 28 new deaths. So this is 12 higher than that. Deaths are doubling still every 6 days on average. We're continuing to closely track hospital beds inventory because that is so critical to save lives. And there's continuing good news there. Across the county in our general emergency hospitals, today we have about 2,151 beds available. It's the highest number since I've been sharing these with you, including 1,558 acute care beds and 593 ICU beds. It doesn't mean there's fewer people in the hospitals. As I've mentioned, more people are going into hospitals than are going out. But it reflects the great work of our hospital community, of our doctors, nurses, administrators, of our janitors, of our technicians, who are building that capacity inside our hospitals to deal with a peak we still have not yet hit. And we have an inventory also, I believe the highest number since I've shared this with you, of 1,125 available ventilators to meet that peak. Even as we go up more slowly, remember, we haven't hit the peak of the absolute number of cases. And so we'll continue to need to bring the personal protective equipment, the machinery, and the beds necessary to make sure that people can be served at our hospital by our extraordinary medical professionals. And I hope you've been joining me at 8 o'clock and thanking our medical professionals. We saw video in Century City when folks who live in some of the high-rises there last night were all clapping and cheering. We hope that you can hear us, even if you're inside a hospital, and know how much we love and care for you. Let me move on to testing. I'm proud to announce we now have 26 testing locations open to the public across the city and county. These are on top of private providers and hospitals that are doing this. This is on top of the great work that's done by our Los Angeles County Public Health. This is on top of the work we're doing with our unhoused Angelenos and our seniors. These are 26 general open locations. And we have the capacity, today we had the capacity to test 9,400 people, a new record. That's more than 30% increase in just a single day. All told, by the end of today, we will have tested 50,000 people through these centers in less than a month. And even as the rate of cases and deaths begin to fall, we're not slowing testing down. It is critical for us. We're scaling it up. So tonight I can announce some good news as well, that effective immediately, we are offering same or next day testing to anyone with COVID symptoms. Before, we opened up recently to anybody with symptoms, but still gave priority to those who are seniors or have pre-existing conditions. We now have enough capacity that we don't have to have any prioritization. In other words, anybody who qualifies with symptoms can now get a test. It's great news for all of us, great news for anybody who's feeling under the weather and has the symptoms of COVID-19. And regardless of age or pre-existing medical condition, you can check out right now whether there's a test available for you at coronavirus.lacity.org/testing. And thank you to the other cities and the county for helping stand up so many of these new centers to make sure throughout this region, it doesn't matter, by the way, you don't have to live in the city where there is one of the testing centers. It's wherever is closest to you, wherever you might work if you're still a critical worker, or where you live, you can get a test. Please do if you need one. Saving lives and stopping the spread of COVID-19 is about, though, much more than testing. It's also about adhering to emergency orders. And overall, you have done an extraordinary job. As I've always said, 99.99% of this is self-enforcement. It's been your own discipline. It's been listening to what our public health professionals and political leaders say and doing them. These orders are here to protect your life as well as the lives of those who are loved. But now is not the time to let up, to throw a house party or to go out on a walk outside of a different neighborhood, to get together with friends. And dangerous gatherings can be reported, as I've encouraged folks to do inside the city of LA, at 877-ASK-LAPD. But I'm calling on Angelenos to avoid gatherings, not to waste LAPD resources in the first place. And folks are doing the right thing. They're adhering to the Safer at Home order and the unprecedented safety measures that we have implemented. We saw that progress at farmers markets when we had to suspend them, but then have them come back with the proper physical distancing and the proper safety measures for everybody. And 33 of them have been certified. If your local farmers market has not returned to being open, encourage them to adhere to these orders. And they can sign up at streetsla.lacity.org/COVID to make sure they're back up and running as soon as possible. And we've seen progress at our construction sites too, that so many of you wrote us about, where people were not practicing safe physical distancing. 2 weeks ago, I announced those guidelines for construction sites to ensure that the employers and workers were safe and protecting public health. And our city's building and safety inspectors, who I want to thank for working through this and doing heroic work to save lives too. Each week they visit more than 1,000 work sites. I'm proud to announce that to date they've visited over 12,000 construction sites. or they visited 12,000 times the existing construction sites that we have. And when a site is not found to be in compliance, or is found to not be in compliance, the inspector issues a correction notice and monitors the site immediately. If the violations are not corrected, we shut that site down. Out of the thousands of sites inspected over the past 2 weeks, tonight I can report that only 61 of those sites were found not to be in compliance and have been given a correction notice. So far, none of them were required to be shut down. You can check those guidelines out if you're a construction worker or a construction supervisor at ladbs.org. And the Department of Building Safety updated its guidance to align with my worker protection order and the county requirements as well, to ensure that essential workers wear the face coverings that they need to keep themselves and their coworkers safe. And as we've stated repeatedly, if any non-essential businesses continue operating, we will visit them and enforce the Safer at Home order to ensure their compliance. It starts with our business ambassadors, city employees, and crisis response team members who are citizen volunteers who have gone out there and visited so many places that we either get a tip on or just that they find themselves. They visited close to 1,400 businesses, and almost all of them responded just as we wished that they would, complying with the emergency order and closing their doors. But some did not. And together with their enforcement actions, LAPD has visited these 1,200 locations to confirm that they were abiding by the rules and will keep following up. LAPD has referred 79 of those businesses to the city attorney's office for misdemeanor consideration. And that low figure is a sign that most businesses are responding to our warnings. But remember, if you're observed recurring violations of the Safer at Home order, if you have observed, recurring violations of this order, let us know about it. We need to see the entire city, and we can't see it all at once. But if you go to coronavirus.lacity.org/business violation, you can report an ongoing violation that you see in your neighborhood. So to tell us some more about those enforcement actions, I want to thank our city attorney, whose team has done a marvelous job of saving lives by ensuring that any of these recalcitrant businesses don't stay open, don't endanger theirs and other people's lives. And with that, hand it over with my thanks to Mike Fuhrer.
Thank you very much, Mayor Garcetti, and thank you for the deep collaboration we've had throughout this whole pandemic. So, notwithstanding the sobering spike in illnesses and deaths that Mayor Garcetti just reported, we know that the mayor's Safer at Home order is working. But all non-essential businesses need to comply. There can be no exceptions, because the quicker that compliance is complete, the sooner all Angelenos can get back to work and resume our normal day-to-day routine. My office, as the mayor said, is charged with enforcing the Safer at Home order, and we've repurposed our neighborhood prosecutors to perform that role. In the first instance, we try to achieve voluntary compliance, and we've achieved voluntary compliance in more than 200 instances. But there have been times when businesses have refused to comply. Now, I absolutely understand the intense need of businesses to be open and make money again. They have bills to pay and employees whose livelihoods depend on them. We get it. But nonetheless, that maximum compliance is absolutely necessary. This is a moment when shared sacrifice will enable all of us to get back to normal as soon as possible. So today I'm announcing that we have filed an additional 10 prosecutions of businesses who, after warnings, have failed to comply with the mayor's Safer at Home order. They include businesses that are wide-ranging, from a print shop to a spa performing massages to a beauty supply store to smoke and vape shops. This is on top of the 4 that we filed previously, and there are more filings yet to come. As the mayor indicated, we are seeing large compliance throughout the city, but in those instances where there is intransigence and businesses refuse to comply, if we must, we will file prosecutions and follow up. I also want to point out that today, for the second time in less than 2 weeks, our office successfully defended the Safer at Home order against a push to block enforcement of that order with regard to gun shops. There have been teams of gun rights activists and others who have sought to open gun shops, and the mayor's order is clear. All non-essential businesses must close. Gun shops and all other non-essential businesses must close. This will enable us all to flatten the curve, and my office is deeply committed to continuing to defend as well as enforce the order. I want to take just a moment to focus on the fact that in addition to enforcement of this order, our office is engaged in a wide range of other activities designed to protect your health and your safety. We have formed a joint coronavirus task force with the district attorney, with the Department of Business and Consumer Affairs, and the county council. We're targeting allegations of price gouging and false and misleading claims on the internet. Price gouging, all our viewers should know, is defined in California as having a seller charge more than 10% more than that seller charged for an item the day before the emergency. And we've been actively scouring the internet and going to brick and mortar stores to protect you from price gouging. We're working with Amazon. Amazon has agreed to work with us. And to those who would use that platform to take advantage of the fear and vulnerability throughout our community, I want to say this. Amazon is reporting to us both the identities of third-party sellers and reporting to us the prices that were charged immediately before the emergency, and we are prosecuting. A couple examples would include a package of 10 protective masks that sold for $39.99 before the emergency and up to $269.99 after the emergency was declared. Another example, hand sanitizer, which in a large quantity sold for $129 before the emergency, we allege was sold for $249 after the emergency. We're also aggressively pursuing false and misleading claims. And let's be clear about what's at stake. Some of these claims involve purported home tests or treatments or cures for the virus. On tests, you should know the FDA has not approved any home test for you to use. Why is that so important for you to know? Because any test that is being sold now that purports to be used at home is a test that you can't trust. And if you can't trust the test results, you're in a situation where you could have a false positive and be filled with anxiety and wondering what you should do for yourself, or you could be getting a false negative and infecting other people. So, just a few days ago, we reached a settlement, a stipulated judgment that includes an injunction against a company called Econ Genomics, and that injunction forbids them from continuing to advertise their at-home test. It forbids them from selling those tests, and it requires full restitution to its customers. We submitted a cease and desist letter to yet another company, and that company, as far as we know, has removed the advertisement and sale of that item from its website, and we have other companies in our sites as well. And as far as purported treatments or cures are concerned, again, we're going on the internet. We're not merely waiting for your complaints. And on the internet, we found, for example, a claim that vitamins, especially vitamin C, could be effective against coronavirus. It was on a site that sold vitamin C. Well, again, the FDA hasn't approved vitamins to treat the coronavirus, and the National Institutes of Health have said that large quantities of vitamins could, in fact, be dangerous. We contacted the site, and almost immediately they took down their claims. Another example is Jim Bakker and the Jim Bakker Show, which advertised an item called Silver Solution. Silver Solution was ostensibly a treatment for the coronavirus. Well, we contacted them, and almost immediately they took that claim off of its show and stopped selling the product. The federal government and the Attorney General of Missouri were also involved. And finally, Norwegian Cruise Lines. The cruise lines employees were reportedly telling consumers that taking a cruise to a warm weather place could be an effective way to travel and not be susceptible to the virus. We contacted the cruise line. They immediately assured us those representations would stop and began an internal investigation. The bottom line to all this is our office is here not only to enforce the mayor's order, essential as that order is for our health and well-being, but also to assure that you're not victimized by price gouging in this crisis or by false and misleading claims. We are here to protect you, to prevent you from being ripped off, and to protect the public health. And we all owe a debt of gratitude to our mayor, whose leadership has been extraordinary during this crisis. Thank you, Mayor Garcetti.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you so much for the work that you have done and continuing to do on behalf of the people of Los Angeles, as well as your colleagues, I know, across the county and across this nation. We appreciate that very much. With that, let me now share a few important announcements before I take some questions. At the start of this crisis, we've taken steps to help Angelenos who are doing the right thing and staying at home. So tonight, as we've extended the order, I'm very proud to also extend our relaxed parking rules until at least May 15th. So don't worry, we're going to make sure those go together and that you don't get a ticket because you are abiding by the Safer at Home order. During this emergency period, the Department of Transportation is not enforcing street sweeping in residential areas, though if you can move your car, we are still trying to do that street sweeping, so help us out. Rush hour parking restrictions, non-metered time limits in commercial zones, and we're not ticketing and towing abandoned and oversized vehicles with expired registration or with recently expired permit parking placards. But I want to be clear, we are still enforcing parking around the city. Those restrictions are very important for deliveries, for our restaurants, for loading zones. So in the residential areas, we're helping you out, but please do look. And if there's ever temporary no parking signs, as I mentioned, we're going to be doing a lot more street paving, especially on some of our main streets, to take an opportunity or take advantage of this opportunity right now. So please continue to abide by that. And if you want more information about what's being enforced and not, visit ladot.lacity.org/coronavirus. And as long as we require you to stay home, vital services that you depend on will continue to run. I've told you that from the beginning, and that goes for our public transit. Metro is still a lifeline for so many in our region, whether that's a nurse going to work, whether that's a senior who needs to go shopping. It's still providing more than 300,000 trips per day. It's something that we need to make it reliable, continue to operate, and to make sure that we get to where we need to go throughout this emergency. So tonight, I'm announcing that beginning this Sunday, April 19th, Metro will change its schedule to make rides more predictable for staff and customers, because we've heard it got a little confusing. Here's what that means. 7 days a week, Metro will run what we're calling a modified Sunday schedule, functioning as it would on a regular Sunday, plus some additional rapid, express, and local buses to increase capacity. The new schedule will maintain about 70% of bus service while making sure there's enough service available for essential trips, and we can keep Metro's entire workforce on the job. We don't need more people losing their jobs right now. So no neighborhood will lose transit service, even if your bus ride may take just a little bit longer. Metro will continue to provide the bus and rail service you've come to depend on during this emergency. So if you're an essential worker, or if you rely on Metro for essential trips, I encourage you, go to metro.net and check out what that schedule is, familiarize yourself with it, and continue to go Metro. Don't forget those rear door boardings. Don't forget to wear your facial coverings as well to protect our workers as they protect you. What we see every day is evidence of our city and our country and our state and our nation coming together in this crisis. And we see that as we work side by side with the city attorney on enforcement. We saw it as we came together early alongside our county partners to halt public gatherings, to issue our Safer at Home orders, to close our beaches and our trails, to take every step possible to protect our residents. State and local officials have led from day one. So much was really thrown on our backs. But we've understood also the massive threat we faced maybe before folks understood that throughout the country. We have the responsibility, but also the authority to save lives, and we've used that. And I was proud to see that same sort of leadership today from our governor. Gavin Newsom, today, along with his counterparts in the western states, in Oregon and Washington, unveiled 6 very thoughtful and necessary goals required for us to reopen our economy in the future. These were things from testing to hospital surge capacity, from necessary rules for physical distancing in reopened spaces. These are the exact guideposts that we will need to get to a new normal in the weeks ahead. Tomorrow, I'll be detailing those a little bit more and applying them here to the thinking we've been doing in Los Angeles about those days and weeks and months ahead, where we can see people going back to the spaces and the places that we enjoyed before this crisis, and how to do that safely. The workforce that we'll require, the technology that we will need, the rules that can help guide us, and the new ways of getting through our city without seeing a spike of deaths or more COVID-19 in LA. But until that moment arrives, we will continue to do what we can to deliver vital services and support all Angelenos, but also to keep our young people engaged. And I want to speak to parents and our young Angelenos for a minute. The Los Angeles Public Library offers our kids and students a broad universe of learning and discovery, and you don't just have to be an LA City resident to take advantage of it. Even though our branches are closed, our library is there for you and working. Great resources, and if you have a library card, you can access ebooks, audiobooks, movies, documentaries, homework help, all at lapl.org. If you don't have a card, you can get an e-card on their website. It's a great thing to do. If you don't have one, get one today. And once you have that in hand, you'll be able to join our Spring into Reading program, where you can read books and complete fun at-home activities. You'll be able to find virtual story times with our librarians. If you feel stuck at home, open up a book, and it's the quickest way to get out of there, to maybe be in space or another place, to go on an adventure, to learn history, to see our future, to do all of those things that I loved as a kid when I used to go to the Sherman Oaks Public Library every afternoon after school. It is a world waiting for you, so don't feel trapped at home. While you're staying at home, you can literally see the world. And every LA Unified student already has a student success card, a program we started a few years ago to ensure every LAUSD student automatically got a library card. You'll discover distance learning online. There's tutoring assistance in math, in science, in English, social studies, and writing between 11 a.m. and 9 p.m. every day to work really around the schedules of busy parents who still might be working. And if you borrowed a book before they temporarily closed down, we've extended our due dates and we will not charge any fines during this crisis. So please enjoy your books a little bit longer, maybe share them with your sibling, and return them when this emergency ends safely. Our libraries are going above and beyond during this crisis. And in response to the shortage of personal protective equipment, staff at the Central Library's Octavia Lab, which is an amazing makerspace in our Central Library, are 3D printing face shields for our medical personnel who need them. It's the kind of innovative spirit that we see all around Los Angeles every single day. It speaks also to another community that's hurting during this time, like so many of us, but our community of artists, the inventive playwrights, musicians, painters, performers who define LA as the creative capital of the world, but are struggling right now to make ends meet. In normal times and in moments of crisis, we're determined to ignite that spark of free expression and creativity in every single Angeleno. It's important to our humanity, our culture, and to our economy. So our Department of Cultural Affairs has developed a list of COVID-19 arts resources during this pandemic for our creative community. And emergency relief grants are available for performing artists and small ensembles in dance and music and theater who canceled shows or concerts due to this pandemic. The first round of funding is only available if you apply by May 1st, so go to culturela.org to learn more right now. In conclusion, it's these simple acts of kindness, of cooperation, of our work together that are defining who we are. I'm so proud to be mayor of the City of Angels because every single day I see those wings stretched out by everyday Angelenos doing their part in small and huge ways to save lives, to bend the curve, and to see a brighter future. We've remained at home, we've worn face coverings, we've washed our hands and washed them again and washed them again. We've supported hard-hit families with direct aid and frontline workers. We've kept our distance, we've followed orders and directives. And for more than a month, these daily actions and sacrifices have made a difference. Here, as we are in the midst of the toughest period, stay with it and smile when you can. Remind yourself that the work that we did means that somebody in this city is alive because of what you did. I know it's hard. I know it can feel like the end is still too far away, but I promise you, if you keep this up, we will get through this together. So as I say each evening, please stay healthy, please stay safe, and please stay at home. Strength and love, Los Angeles. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions, as well as the city attorney is too. First question, please.
Hi, Mayor. We have a question from Phil Schuman from Fox 11 News.
Phil, how are you?
Mr. Mayor, don't imagine you have time to be reading any books these days.
Not me, unless it's with my daughter. As I joked in an earlier presentation, My wife is the principal. I hope to be the vice principal, but she said I'm working my way as a substitute teacher right now, so I'll work my way up. But
All right. Quick question. Got a lot of frustrated Angelenos who could not get onto the website to apply for the Angelino card or the phone number. Can you give us an update on what the status of that system is?
Sure. It was an overwhelmingly positive reception. We could not believe how many folks, and many of them, by the way, maybe because of national news, we had literally tens of thousands of people from outside Los Angeles, over 100 cities, that all went online at the same time. We went down for an hour to add more servers. We tripled the phone services. We're going to be using a private phone bank on top of our 311 callers, et cetera, because there's so many folks that were signing up. Let me see if I can find the exact statistics for you. But we had 56,000 applications that have been submitted as of this afternoon. And those are the ones that are filtered by LA City. And I know that it's probably frustrating for some folks out there who didn't know exactly, they didn't live inside the city of LA boundaries from, a neighboring city or something. This is right now just for the city of LA, though we hope to work with county, other cities, and other parts of the country to model this. And like I said, we always knew, just like with our small business loans, there will be an oversubscription, but I'm committed to continuing to raise money. And for folks that are listening out there, continue to give, because when you see and feel that sort of response, you know just how much people are suffering, but just how much we can help. I told you that my wife and I have donated. I've gotten my parents to donate. I've said it to my friends. We have pillars of the community have donated between $5 and $2 million, but we had 56,000 applications. Don't worry if you have not gotten through, because there's 2 more days still. So I think everybody went in that first hour. It's important to remember you don't need to be the first to apply. It's not first come, first serve at all. And as we said yesterday, if there's more people that apply than the number of cards we have in this first round, we will do that randomly. So somebody who fills out the very last second will have as much a chance as the person who fills it out at the beginning. And that will be completed once it closes on Thursday at 4:30. So again, those hours are 8:30 to 4:30. Sorry, go ahead.
That was 56,000 from the city of Los Angeles?
Correct.
Or all told?
That's 56,000 from the city of Los Angeles. If you're not in the city of Los Angeles, you can't make the full application. So those are ones just from the first day. Any other questions on that?
Thank you. Our
Okay.
next question
Thank you.
comes from the line of Claudia Prosciutto. Please go ahead with
Hey, Claudia.
the next news.
How are you?
Eric, wanted to ask you about plans that are in the works or in place for dealing with other kinds of emergencies that might come up, wildfires, earthquakes, heaven forbid, in the midst of all the restrictions and dealing with the coronavirus crisis.
Absolutely.
What can you tell me about that?
It's a great question, because things like wildfires don't stop just because we're all indoors. Obviously, we've had, even though crime is way down, we still continue to have crimes that police have to respond to that have nothing to do with COVID-19, and our firefighters go out there every single day. So we have the capacity to, I guess, fight more than a one-front war. We plan for this. It's in our emergency plans to be able to scale up. Our numbers today, I share those with you each day in terms of the number of firefighters that are out and our police officers that are out. Right now, we just have 57 cases at Los Angeles Police Department, 17 of those return to duty. There's more that are quarantined than that, but it's still, I believe, under 2% of all personnel. LAFD, there's 19 cases, and 8 have returned to duty already. So we see the capacity to be able to fight a fire. Obviously, if there's something like an earthquake on top of this, that could be devastating because of the public health aspects of that. We have many more rec centers that we could stand up, that we could use as emergency shelters. If we had both those happen at once, God help us, Los Angeles, but we are experienced, we are able, we have resources, and we can meet that challenge. But I pray that this one challenge will be the only one we have to meet at scale. Remember, fires happen all the time, and we've seen those seasons come through, but we are prepared, we feel strong. I talk to the fire chief every day, and our transports comparatively are down. That's because fewer people are out there, there's fewer car accidents, et cetera. So in some ways we have even more capacity to put firefighters on those should there be anything that happens. Thanks, Claudia. The next question, please.
Thank you. Our next question comes from the line of Elizabeth Chow with the LA Daily News. Please go ahead.
Hey, Liz.
Hi, Mayor. So I was wondering, with the city budget,
Yes.
or at least your proposal for the city budget coming out on Monday, I was wondering, are you considering any, how do you plan on balancing the budget? Are you considering, for instance, a special tax, raising fees? Are there any potential cuts or layoffs? And can you maybe update me on how revenue projections are looking based on what data you have now? Thanks.
Absolutely. So we'll be sharing more of that, and we're literally writing it as we speak. This pandemic has caused us to have to look every single day at revenues. There's no question, though, that we are going to have cuts. I implemented a hiring freeze as soon as I declared the state of emergency, more or less, for the city of Los Angeles. We told departments no new programs. Council initiated new initiatives we don't have any space or room for. We're really prioritizing the response to COVID-19, our ongoing fight against homelessness, and making sure that we have the resources we need. Excuse me. So the main things that you'll see in our budget will be how we can tighten our belts. We may have to look at, if you looked at 2008, the shared sacrifices that we had, things like furloughs, we had a few layoffs as well. The work that we had to do, that was when we had unemployment go into the low double digits. Initially, it was 8-9%. It got up to 12-13%. We are looking at a base case scenario, and I'll share this too a little bit later in the week with some of our projections, at about 20% unemployment in Los Angeles County. That's not unique here, that's across the country. This will be devastating. Revenues, take the airport, for instance, its own budget, but flights are down 95%. Hotel occupancy tax, the TOT as we call it, that's something that we estimate will be down at least 30-40% this year, if not more. And of course, sales tax is also down, we estimate, quite significantly. So that will require cuts. It is my responsibility to balance the budget. I want to thank the federal government who has helped us get some of the necessary funds we need to reimburse the COVID-19 expenses. But you bring up something very good and very important. Cities around the country and local governments, as well as state governments, will go off a fiscal cliff without assistance from Washington. And I'm imploring our Congress, I'm imploring our president to make sure the next round also helps bail out cities. If you don't bail out cities, that's the only way you can bail out all of America's people. And we need your help. Thanks, Liz. Excuse me. Next question, please.
Our next question comes from the line of Maeve Rustin with CNN. Please go ahead.
Hey, Maeve. How you doing?
Hi, Mayor. Obviously, Governor Newsom today described the new normal and what that might look like, with people continuing to wear masks and potentially waiters at restaurants wearing masks and gloves and doing temperature checks. Can you describe whether you share that vision as being sort of the new normal? And also, it sounds like the state certainly will need a huge workforce to do some of the contact tracing. I was wondering how you're thinking through that, and whether there will be opportunities for the many people in the city that are now unemployed to take part in that kind of contact, the tracing that would be needed.
Absolutely. And Maeve, I don't want to preview everything I'll be talking about tomorrow, but those are exactly the right questions that you're asking. First and foremost, of course, not only do I support what our governor talked about today, but what we've been talking about with doctors for the last couple weeks. I've been convening groups here in City Hall, talking with my colleagues around the country and the 13 big city mayors of California almost every night. To me, it's about that testing and tracing. It's about making sure that we can track who is sick and getting tests to as many people as possible. It's about, real-time surveillance, blood testing, a rapid response to finding cases. And you bring up a great point about the workforce. So I alluded to it a couple days ago. I've called for a CARES Corps. Think about the Peace Corps that President Kennedy had. Think about the Teacher Corps. My grandmother answered that call of President Johnson and became a teacher at a low-income school in Milwaukee. This is the time for us to all be called to do things bigger than ourselves. And the original Corps, the Civilian Conservation Corps, happened at a moment when we faced the Great Depression and so many people were out of work. Imagine being able to help city governments achieve what they need to, helping protect people by having the healthcare workers that we need, and at the same time putting people to work that right now are suffering so much. So look forward to kind of sharing that. Hopefully in the next 24 hours or so, you'll see something officially come out on this that I co-wrote with the mayor of Oklahoma City and one of our top doctors in the country. But really this idea of the Civilian Cares Corps, whether it's helping people get the low-interest loans that they need for their business, rental assistance for individuals and fill out the forms, or helping folks be able to track and trace cases. We're probably going to need hundreds of thousands of Americans to be put to work. It should be funded by the feds, but enacted locally. And we're seeing that here with our LA Cares Corps. I've talked to the governor and his staff about a volunteer corps around the state, and we're seeing it in cities like San Francisco that are cities and county that together are taking librarians who aren't working right now and medical students and adding to the capacity of those public health officials who, when they find a case, have to call everybody they've been in contact with to quarantine and to suppress the spread of COVID-19. So I hope that whets your appetite for tomorrow. We'll be going even deeper into that with the usual news-making announcements tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next question, please.
Thank you. Our last question in English comes from the line of John Ricardi. Please go ahead.
Hey, John.
Hey, Mayor. Thank you very much for the call. Mayor, the daily county reports show that cases in specific neighborhoods and community in the city are spiking. Hollywood has more than 200 cases. There's clusters in Melrose, Silver Lake, etc. You've mentioned frequently responding and acting based on data. So what tactics and strategies do you invoke when you see these kind of clusters happening?
Absolutely. So we review that data and look to make sure that there's testing capacity where we see hotspots or where other data is showing us a disproportionate impact, especially on mortality. So for instance, the first data we got was not geographic recently, but it was based on ethnicity, where we saw African Americans, who were about 9% of the county. In the initial numbers were 17% of the deaths. For Anglos, for Asian Pacific Islanders, Native Americans, and for Latinos, the numbers weren't bigger than the population at large. So we immediately looked at expanding capacity at the South LA site at Crenshaw Christian Center. We opened up just yesterday with Councilmember Price a walk-in center in South LA for the first time that I announced yesterday. So we look at that. But it's not just about culture, it's also about location. We only control the city of Los Angeles, but working with the county, we've tried to make sure we fill in spots where there may be cases, but there isn't testing close by, and helping the county open those up. And in the city, we've made sure to cluster those testing facilities close enough to the places we see hotspots. So it definitely informs the decisions that we make, which are a combination of what facilities are available, where there's a parking lot, where we can staff them, and what the data is showing us. One last thing that we're using the data for, too, is to inform us about some of the work that we need to do out there. If we see, for instance, in certain parts of Los Angeles, there's more movement, more people going further away from their homes based on the cell phone data, which I want to reassure people doesn't say you specifically, we just get anonymized general data, then that's something that we work with our business ambassadors who are out there on the streets, making sure they can keep an eye on and encourage folks to stay home. And where there's individual cases like a farmer's market here or there, that's when we take larger steps like suspending the farmer's markets based on the data that we saw and making sure that they have a better plan. Any follow-up on that? Or?
No, that's great. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Thanks, John. Appreciate you. Next question, please.
And we have one more question in English from the line of David Zanizer with the Los Angeles Times. Please go ahead.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you great.
Great. I had a question, and during my little pause, maybe I missed it. You've been walking the public every day through the list of people who tested positive in the police department and the fire department, and more recently the full city workforce. But I'm wondering, how many city workers are quarantined and out of commission because they came into contact with somebody who tested positive? What's the number of people being kept away right now because of other cases?
Let me see if I can get that for you, David. I don't have it actually on my briefing here. I know that for LAPD, it was about 250. That's our largest department. So I think we don't necessarily have a measure of all of them, because some may be working at home already and are quarantined because of exposure to a family member or somebody who is positive, but they're not positive. So we don't have 100% accuracy, but let me see if I can get you a number. I would definitely be in the hundreds, And I know it's less than 1,000. So somewhere between probably 250 and I would estimate, given the size of the police department, of our overall workforce, somewhere between 250 and 1,000. But we don't have any functions of government that have been limited. There's not a single department who has said because there's people who are quarantined or out, we aren't able to fulfill the responsibilities that we have. And in fact, we've used the disaster worker program, which deputizes city workers to go into new roles or different departments to meet the needs that we have for everything from a homeless shelter or a testing site. We're able to fill in and even supplement our usual strength. But I'll see if I can track down the overall number of both confirmed positive cases from city workers and then also the number that are quarantined as well. Okay. Thank you. Next question. I'm sorry. I do have it right here. I misread it. 131 confirmed cases of the city workforce, but I don't have the quarantine. We'll get you that. Next question, please.
Thank you. And our only question in Spanish comes from the line of Victor Cordero with Estrella Today. Please go ahead.
Hi, Victor. Hola.
Mayor, how are you? Thank you very much for doing this, not only in English and Spanish, but also for the hearing impaired community. Bless you for that.
Thank you.
All the colleagues made a good question, so I'm going to try one that is actually personal.
Sure.
That happened to me over the weekend. I know that you gave the order for everybody to use a face mask, at least while we are in public or in a supermarket, pretty much. And I was in a supermarket over the weekend, and I saw a couple of people without face mask. When I asked the manager of the store, which I'm not going to mention because we are not here to point fingers, we are here rather to fix situations, the manager told me that corporate told them that everybody can come in because business is business. If you can mention something in that matter.
Sure.
And number two, I see a lot of gloves, plastic gloves on the street, on the parks and parking lots, and a number of different places. And that kind of worries me as well.
Yep.
I'm not pointing to the city or our city officials to do something.
Sure.
We are also a community that can be proactive. What would be your words to those people that just dispose the gloves there?
Absolutely.
And what can we do about it?
Well, thank you. First of all, we will see on Wednesday the county requirements that every single business, and we've implemented them in the city too, will have to fill out that county form that says specifically what every business is doing to implement the face covering requirement. So while we implemented ours last week, theirs goes into effect tomorrow. They will also have to fill that and have proof of it. So any business that's doing that, I want them to hear very loud and clear. We initially said that you can refuse to serve somebody who doesn't have a facial covering on, but we need everybody to have that on. And like so many of these things, we cannot have people everywhere. But the rules are clear. You must have a face covering to protect those employees that are in there, and those employees must have them as well. So anybody who has that, please continue to call us. Call 311 if it's in the city of LA, and we'll make sure that we get our business ambassadors out there, sit down, and we do believe business is business. We want to keep business going in our essential businesses, but that shouldn't come at the expense of their workers. That shouldn't come at the expense of more deaths. That shouldn't come at the expense of all of our health. So really take that personal responsibility, and we will try to fill in as much as possible. In terms of the gloves too, I think similarly, take responsibility. If you have rubber gloves, throw them out. Your trash is your trash. You put city workers and others at risk potentially of touching that contaminated material, but we do have personal protective equipment for our sanitation workers, our rec and parks workers and others, so they can safely dispose of them, but please help them out and don't put anybody else at risk. I'll say that in Spanish. Let me thank, as always, our English language visitors who are here today. Thank you. God bless you. I'll see you tomorrow. Pero también en español yo quiero decir